You wake up one morning, and the world is different. The sun, the thing that's supposed to rise every day and give life to everything around you, barely shines anymore. It's this eerie, weak light that's more like moonlight than daylight. The sky is a strange, murky gray always. Your village has been struggling for months. The crops didn't grow last year, and they're failing again this year. The wheat fields that should be tall and golden are withered and brown. Barely anything has sprouted. The fruit trees are barren. The soil is too cold, and the rains don't come at the right times. You've heard stories from travelers, far worse things. Whole towns where people have turned on each other, eating whatever or whoever they can find just to stay alive a little longer. And the dead. There are more dead than living in some places. There's no one left to bury them. You don't know why this is happening. There's no one to explain it, no one to help. The priests say it's God's wrath for all the sins of the world. This is the year 536 AD, often considered the worst year in human history. For over a year and a half, people lived under darkness after a volcanic eruption, which led to one of the worst famines in history, where people resorted to cannibalism. Then, just a few years later, the world was hit with a pandemic, the plague of Justinian, which wiped out half the world's population. The eruption had come without warning, a wrathful exhalation from the depths of the earth. It began with a distant rumble, a tremor beneath the feet of those unaware they were about to bear witness to nature's fury. Farmers dropped their tools and looked to the horizon as a plume of ash and fire shot skyward, blotting out the sun. Villages miles away heard it like thunder on an otherwise calm day. What followed was far worse, a rain of ash that fell like cursed snow, suffocating crops, clogging rivers, and turning once fertile land into barren wastelands. For weeks, the skies darkened further, the sun reduced to a faint, ghostly orb struggling to pierce the veil of volcanic debris. Day and night blurred as an oppressive twilight settled over the land. It was cold, unnaturally so. Even the hardiest of farmers, accustomed to enduring harsh winters, could not explain this sudden, ceaseless chill. Livestock perished first, their carcasses strewn across fields, a grim testament to the earth's refusal to yield. Then came the hunger. People scavenged what little remained. Nuts, roots, even bark from trees were stripped and boiled into bitter soups. Families traded stories of neighbors who had vanished, whispered rumors that they had not moved away but were consumed by those desperate to survive. Travelers spoke of towns now devoid of life, the streets littered with unburied dead. They said the ashes tasted of sulfur, and some swore they could still hear the rumble of the mountain, faint but ever present, as if it were laughing at their suffering. And just as it seemed the world might adapt, that perhaps humanity might endure even this great trial, death came once more, not in fire or ash, but in the unseen touch of pestilence. The plague of Justinian spread with terrifying speed. It began in the ports, carried by fleas hidden in the fur of rats that stowed away on ships. The first to fall were dockworkers and merchants, their once healthy bodies reduced to fevered husks in a matter of days. Then it moved inland, unstoppable as the wind, infecting rich and poor alike. The symptoms were cruel. Boils as large as eggs erupted on the skin, oozing foul-smelling pus. Victims burned with fever, their skin clammy and pale, their eyes sunken and filled with terror. Some cried out to God, others cursed his name. Many suffered in silence, too weak to speak, their bodies too racked with pain to resist the inevitable. Entire cities were silenced, their streets eerily quiet save for the buzz of flies. Corpses were piled high, their sheer numbers overwhelming the living. At first, priests tried to give the dead proper burials, but soon they too succumbed, leaving the bodies to rot where they fell. In Constantinople, the great city itself, it was said that 10,000 people died in a single day. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and no amount of incense burned in the churches could mask it. For those who survived, life was a fragile thread, easily severed. Food was scarce, trade routes were disrupted, and the ever-present fear of disease lingered in every breath and touch. Families turned inward, locking themselves away from the world, while others roamed aimlessly, their faces marked by despair and the faint hope that somewhere, somehow, the plague might not reach them. Yet amidst the darkness, stories of resilience and defiance emerged. Small communities, isolated by geography or luck, weathered the storm together. In remote monasteries, monks recorded the horrors of their time, their quills scratching furiously as they preserved the memory of humanity's suffering and survival for future generations. Some turned to faith, others to reason, and a few dared to dream that after the ashes had settled and the disease had run its course, a new world might rise from the ruins. But in 536 AD, such hopes were fleeting. For those who lived through the dual cataclysms of fire and pestilence, the future was a luxury they could scarcely imagine. Survival was the only goal, a day-to-day struggle against forces they could neither understand nor control. The world had changed, and no one knew if it would ever be the same again.